An extraordinary party for an unusual couple. For Shazia Zuberi from a Pakistani family and Henderson Leacock, a black man, this is the first of their marriage ceremonies. Two people with very different backgrounds will become one Canadian family. But from this day on, Canadian racial attitudes will affect their family life. The children they hope to raise will struggle to piece together an identity. Their children may someday choose to see themselves as Pakistani or black or neither. These choices will be shaped by attitudes on the street and attitudes inside the Zuberi and Leacock families. And among the two families joined here, all does not appear to be well from the start. Later at the wedding and reception, Henderson's family is out in force, along with the newlyweds' friends. But Shazia's aunt and uncle are the only Zuberis who would attend. The newlyweds already carry a burden shared by thousands of interracial couples in Canada. They will fight harder for a dignified future. It might console the couple to know that that future has already been lived by other families across Canada. Each has achieved a unique and delicate balancing act. Sunit John's roots are in colonial India, his education English and Christian. He came to Canada in 1960 wanting to assimilate, and he was good at it. Even then, he probably did not expect to meet and marry his wife Lynn. It was one further step away from his origins. Yet cultural give and take remains a feature of the John family life. Before the couple married in 1972, Lynn had almost no contact with people of color. Now in Toronto, they have 3 mixed-race children. Each has a different strategy for bridging the gaps. Their children, Miriam, Matthew and Daniel, started to work out who they were from an early age.
One time when I was little, coming home from school, and I think it was after I'd been to somebody's house for lunch, and I said to my mom, why did we eat curry? Because I realized that, my friends didn't eat curry. And she said, well, it's because your dad's Indian. And I said, oh, I guess that means we're half Indian and half normal. And that became like a really big family joke, and gets to be told at every family party you ever go to.
And when she said that, I thought, first of all, it was hilarious and funny. And I wondered if she conceived of herself as half Indian and half normal. That's my husband. But about a year later, when we were driving in the car, my husband and I, Miriam said to us, "What's a Paki?" So I explained to her that it was someone from Pakistan. Then I thought, she asked me that. So she said somebody called her Paki in the schoolyard.
I would never even admit to somebody that I ever ate curry, because I remember hearing how much they used to tease Mansoor. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
They'd say, Mansoor smells like a sewer and all this stuff, because, he smelled like curry. So I remember hearing that and thinking, oh man, I better never let it slip. But I ate curry when I was a kid.
All of Sunit's siblings married white Canadians, and family picnics are a multiracial jumble of bodies. The racial hierarchy of everyday Canadian life may not disappear, but here life is more comfortable.
I can't serve.
Here too, the children will look around for the signals about who they might be. Some will try to be as white as possible. Some will resent their difference, and some will celebrate it. The John children are still working at ways to fold their Indianness into a life like that of their peers. It's an individual journey, and the family can only be of so much help. It's harder if that family's consciousness of its roots is already fading.
We have a lot of family around us. Though.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but they're not very Indian either, though. Like, they don't know much about India either, so...
Well,
they're not,
grandma does.
yeah, except for grandma, but no, not... And Auntie Ivy and stuff like that.
When I was growing up, it was different from you two because I had this complex about being white. I wanted to be white. I wanted to have blonde hair, blue eyes, and be like everybody else in my class. I got teased, too. Like, you know, I got called Patrick and stuff.
Oh, like nobody ever teased me when I was in school.
Yeah.
Even like all the way up. I don't remember ever being called names.
Matt's like the least Indian of all.
I'm not the least Indian.
He's the lightest skin, too.
Matthew's skin color is remarkable inside his family, and outside it allows him to most easily follow his father's strategy of assimilation. Matthew, above all, wants to lead a Canadian life. His politics are Ontario Progressive Conservative. He organizes for the party at the University of Toronto's Scarborough campus. He shares his father's confident expectation that he will be accepted. He sees himself headed forward and upward with no deep fear that he will be denied anything because of his race.
I hope.
I think from the fundraiser, we can decide the candidacy.
Yeah. How much is that?
$100.
Following this path has made Matthew himself a target for family humor. Jokes that are both political and racial.
Rory is always like having somebody like that too.
Yeah, you do actually have to admit. Like minorities and poor people. That was a low blow. Of course, realizing that I am a minority myself.
Well, hey.
You're right. And end the conversation.
No, the conservative says that we're white. I mean, right. Right.
That is not true, Uncle. I'm not white.
Yeah,
I think you are. The way you behave.
Camille Hernandez Ramdwa, born of Ukrainian and Trinidadian parents, cannot adopt Matthew John's confidence. She knows everyday racism and wants to protect her children from it in a way her parents were not able to do. It was an earlier, harder time for interracial couples and their children.
I was left pretty much on my own to develop a racial identity because my parents weren't giving me any sort of support or any sort of guidance in that area. And at school, I was just surrounded by white kids and, you know, I mean, they saw me as different, I got called names or whatever, but I also, at a very, I guess, fairly young age, well, around 12, I really realized I am not one of these people. I'm different. There's something different about me. And it's then that I started to explore different racial identities. And I think I went through different processes looking for something that fit. What really sort of spoke to me was black identity. That just made a lot of sense to me. That's how I felt. And that's also how I was being seen. And as I got a little older, I started to realize it was also Caribbean. Even to define as a Caribbean person is sort of an ambiguous position to be in. People still want you to give some kind of racial definition. So this is, you know, sort of where I find myself at this particular point, and I feel I really have to define as a multiracial person.
Camille's partner, Trevor, is also from a mixed-race background. Their shared experiences have already eliminated a potential source of family trouble. Some things are taken for granted.
I had an extended family that was very mixed. So, for me, when I go to my cousins, they never look like me. They look different. They all look different.
Mm-hmm. But an identity inside a family may not easily be found outside it. There, society imposes its own requirements.
I think identity is a very subjective, very personal thing, and I think you have to find the balance between what you truly feel yourself to be, you know, outside of heredity and socialization and things, and also how society sees you. There's actually a term for it. It's called perceptual dissonance between how we see ourselves and how the world sees us. And I think a lot of multiracial people go through this. I mean, I know I go through it almost daily.
Sometimes when I tell people I'm like cousins, like one, my cousin, like Richard,
yeah,
he comes to my office sometimes, right? You know? And I say, my cousin's going to come pick up this parcel and we'll give it to him, right? Sometimes I forget to say that what he looks like physically. I just said, oh, he's a big fat, he's big and he's bald, right? And he's going to come and pick up the thing, you know. So Richard comes to the thing, and of course he's black and he's bald and he's big, right? and then he said, Trevor left something here for me. His name's Richard. And then they leave and then they come back. Is he your cousin? You know, yeah.
Even though he sounds the same, he also sounds Chinese. You know, that's what, you just can't make that connection.
Kimiko Hota has faced similar situations. Multiracial children can look remarkably different from their parents. For her, this contrast was driven home early.
When I was a young child, and I used to go to the playground with my mother, children used to always say things to me like, that's not your real mother. My mother's a strawberry blonde with blue eyes and very, very fair. And I used to always say, yes, of course, that's my real mother. But I had a funny feeling about it. I often used to think that maybe I was adopted. It wasn't until I studied biology later on that I understood how it could be that I could look so different from my mother, that I was actually a real mixture of my father's, how my father looked and how my mother looked.
Kimiko teaches English to people who are facing an even tougher cultural reality than hers.
Movie? And you got a really great movie you saw, or a really terrible movie that you saw?
Her students are people who are taking a step away from their ethnic roots. But as she gets older, she has investigated more closely her father's Japanese roots. She lived in Japan. She learned her family's history there and on this continent. But before that, she changed her name.
I was born with the name Kimberly Denise Hota, and it was a name, when I was growing up, people always referred to me as Kim. It was a name that I didn't really identify with. Kimberly's a Gaelic name, Denise is a French name. I didn't feel very much that that really reflected who I was. When I finally did change my name was I went overseas to school in Switzerland, and I just enrolled as Kimiko. And so it was really from the age of 18 that I started to go by that name. But it wasn't until I finished university that I legally changed my name. And I feel really, really good about having done that. My grandparents changed their names. They had beautiful Japanese names. My grandmother was Yoshiko Nakamura, and my grandfather was Takashi Hota. But they changed their names to George and Rosie. So I just felt there's some justice in changing my name back to being Japanese. My experiences in Japan were a bit different than what I might have expected before I went over. I found that, I guess I was expected to go over there and be accepted as Japanese, but I found that I was treated as an exotic Canadian, which really quite surprised me initially. In Canada, I think most people look at me and they think I look very Asian. In Japan, they thought I looked very Caucasian. So in Canada, people might say that I look like my father, but the Japanese people thought that I looked like my mother.
For Matthew John, the biggest problem is simple racial hatred. He is shocked into a consciousness of his background only by other people's racism and his parents' difficulty in helping him deal with that racism.
I never really felt like I was different until I think I was 17 years old, and I went to pick up a girl to go to the library with her or something. And I was standing in the hallway where her father couldn't see me, and he asked her, "Where are you going?" And she said, "I'm going out with Matthew." And he said, "You're going out with that nigger again. He's going to get you killed. I see that kind of thing on TV." Or it was something to that effect. But I remember he called me a nigger. And I was just so completely shocked that I just walked out of the house and I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to think.
I didn't understand and know exactly what had been said. And so I think I just, as I did in all situations, tried to understand where that father was coming from.
One of the things I remember, I'm pretty sure I remember this, emphasizing the matter of you've got to start at the place of forgiving him before you can actually work this out and resolve handling your own anger.